Amara was a black woman in her early 30s. She had sharp, intelligent eyes and a calm determination in the way she carried herself. Every morning she arrived at the office before most of her colleagues. She stayed late, meticulously reviewing reports, double-checking figures, and perfecting every presentation she was assigned. But no matter how much effort she put in, she was never the one in the spotlight. Her colleagues often doubted her abilities, not because of her skills, but because of her identity. Some whispered behind her back, others openly mocked her contributions, and many overlooked her ideas during meetings. And there was one person in particular who made her life at the company especially difficult: Melissa Carter. Melissa was everything Amara wasn't: blonde, tall, and always surrounded by a group of people who admired her confidence. She had mastered the art of corporate politics. She knew how to charm the managers, take credit for others' work, and sabotage anyone who stood in her way. For reasons Amara could never fully understand, Melissa seemed to have a special dislike for her. Whenever Amara proposed an idea in meetings, Melissa would smirk and cut her off. "Nice try, Amara," Melissa would say in a sarcastic tone, "but I don't think you really understand the bigger picture here." Others would laugh lightly, not because Amara was wrong, but because they were too intimidated to challenge Melissa's confidence. The most painful part: Melissa often lied. She would spread rumors that Amara had missed deadlines, delivered sloppy work, or failed to contribute in group projects. None of it was true. But in an office where perception often mattered more than reality, the whispers began to stain Amara's reputation. Amara tried to ignore the mockery. She tried to focus only on her work. But there were nights when she went home, closed the door to her small apartment, and broke down in tears. "Why can't they see me for who I am?" she whispered to herself. "Why do I always have to fight twice as hard to prove I belong here?" Still, no matter how heavy the burden became, Amara never gave up. She had grown up in a struggling neighborhood, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to provide for her children. Her mother had always told her, "Amara, the world may not be fair, but you carry greatness within you. Don't ever let them convince you otherwise." Those words became her fuel. One morning, the company announced a major international conference. Representatives from a powerful European firm were flying in to discuss a potential multi-million-dollar deal. This deal, if secured, could skyrocket global dynamics into an even higher league of global business. The responsibility of leading the presentation fell, of course, to Melissa. Amara was assigned to support her, meaning she would do most of the behind-the-scenes work, but Melissa would be the one standing on stage, receiving the praise. Melissa made it clear from the beginning: "Don't get in my way, Amara. Just prepare the data, make the slides, and keep quiet. I'll handle the rest." Amara nodded, though deep down she knew Melissa hadn't even glanced at the numbers properly. For weeks, Amara worked tirelessly, gathering every piece of information the executives might ask for, making sure the projections were accurate, and designing slides that told the story clearly. Melissa, on the other hand, spent most of her time socializing and boasting about how she was going to seal the deal of the year. The day finally arrived. The massive conference room buzzed with tension. The company's CEO, board members, and senior partners all sat in the front row. Across from them were the European executives, sharp, demanding men and women who were not easily impressed. Melissa walked onto the stage, heels clicking confidently against the floor. She flashed her perfect smile and began her presentation. At first, everything seemed fine, but within minutes, cracks began to appear. Melissa stumbled over figures, mispronounced key terms, and skipped entire slides of crucial data. When one of the European executives asked a detailed question about market projections, Melissa froze. She glanced at her notes, stammered, and then gave an answer that was completely wrong. Whispers spread through the room. The Europeans exchanged skeptical looks. The CEO frowned, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. The deal, the future of the company, was slipping away right in front of everyone's eyes. Amara sat in the back row, heart pounding. She could feel her palms sweating. She knew every detail of the presentation. She knew the correct numbers, the real projections, the truth. But should she speak up? If she stayed silent, the company might lose millions, and she would remain invisible. If she spoke up, she risked embarrassing Melissa publicly and breaking the unspoken rule. Know your place. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Don't ever let them convince you that you're less than what you are. Before she could second-guess herself, Amara stood up. Her voice was steady but firm. Excuse me, she said, walking toward the stage. May I clarify that point? All eyes turned to her. Melissa's face turned red with anger. What are you doing, Amara? She hissed under her breath. But Amara ignored her. She took the microphone, looked directly at the European executives, and calmly explained the correct figures, the accurate projections, and the strategic plan she had prepared. Her words were clear, her tone confident, her knowledge undeniable. The Europeans leaned forward, listening intently. They began asking her follow-up questions, and Amara answered each one without hesitation. The room shifted. The skepticism on the Europeans' faces turned into interest, then into admiration. By the time Amara finished, the lead European executive smiled and said, "This is exactly the clarity we were looking for. We can proceed with the deal." The room erupted in applause. The CEO stood, shaking Amara's hand firmly. The board members looked at her with newfound respect. Melissa, meanwhile, sat frozen in her chair, her carefully crafted image crumbling in front of everyone. And that was the moment everything began to change. For years, Amara had been underestimated, mocked, and silenced. But in one decisive moment of courage, she had not only saved the company, but also forced everyone to finally see her for who she truly was, her face pale. Everything she had tried to destroy came crashing down around her. She had mocked Amara, sabotaged her work, whispered lies behind her back. And yet, here was Amara, standing taller than ever, celebrated not just by her colleagues, but by the very people Victoria had hoped to impress. The deal was signed that very afternoon, with Amara's strategy as the backbone of the agreement. Mr. Richardson turned to Amara in front of everyone. From today forward, you will lead this division. Global Dynamics needs leaders who can see beyond themselves, and you've proven to be exactly that. The office erupted in cheers. Some clapped out of respect, others out of guilt, realizing how wrong they had been. Victoria quietly slipped out of the room, the weight of humiliation crushing her. For the first time, she felt what Amara had endured all along, the sting of being invisible, unheard, and dismissed. A new dawn. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Amara had ever experienced. She now had her own office with glass walls that overlooked the city skyline. People who once doubted her now lined up outside her door for advice. And though recognition felt sweet, what mattered most to her was the respect she had finally earned, not because of her background, but because of her undeniable talent. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyscrapers, Amara sat alone in her office. Her reflection on the glass showed not just a black woman in a suit, but a warrior who had fought silent battles every single day until victory was hers. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Miss Alvarez, the senior investor. "You are proof," the message read, "that brilliance shines brightest when it's been forced to fight through the darkest shadows. Never stop shining." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes, not of sadness, but of triumph. Epilogue. From shadows to light. Months later, Global Dynamics celebrated its most successful quarter in history. Amara was now head of international strategy, leading a diverse team that looked up to her not just as a boss, but as a role model. And as for Victoria, she eventually left the company, her name fading into irrelevance. No one remembered her as the star employee she once pretended to be, but everyone remembered Amara, the woman who was mocked, doubted, and betrayed, yet who rose higher than anyone ever expected. Amara stood on the stage at the company's annual gala, addressing hundreds of employees. Her voice was steady, filled with gratitude and pride. "I want you all to remember this," she said. "Never let anyone convince you that you are less because of where you come from, how you look, or what others say about you. The truth will always rise, and so will you." The crowd stood in ovation, clapping until the walls shook. And Amara, she finally smiled, knowing that her story was no longer one of pain and doubt, but of courage, dignity, and victory.